Ever since I started this channel, I have been getting questions about my videos and the topics they discuss, so I might as well make a questions and answers video to answer some of those topics. One of my most commonly suggested videos is making a video about the Germanic substrate theory. Personally, I'm not really a follower of this theory because a lot of newer research, like the Germanic dictionary by Kronen, has as few as 4 to 5% of the total vocabulary being early substrate loans. Honestly, Germanic really isn't that different from other Indo-European branches. Germanic underwent a consonant shift, but the consonant shift isn't really that more dramatic than what you, for example, see in Armenian or Greek. Germanic had a stress shift to root accent, but that happened in other branches too. I mean, look at languages like Persian, French or Welsh. They are to some extent far more removed from Proto-Indo-European than a language like German. So I think that Germanic has an overstated uniqueness to it. And in my opinion, there are other Indo-European languages that actually do have a clear substrate, even in mythology and culture, like Greek, for example. There really isn't that much strong evidence, neither in archaeology, genetics, or linguistics, that Germanic really has a strong substrate. However, there are those like Peter Schreiber that insist on Germanic being heavily influenced by substrate, but he also attributes basically all changes in Germanic and even the daughter languages to substrates. Another very common question I get is, why do I pronounce Old Norse with pitch accent? And I would say it's fairly simple, because it has to have been in the language in that period, because the pitch accent in Swedish and Norwegian and the stöt in Danish is completely dependent on a time period in the Viking Age before, between the last syncope of short e and o and the suffixation of the definite article. It can't develop after that. So for me to pronounce, for example, Old Swedish with a pitch accent, or Old Norwegian or Danish with some kind of accent 2 or 1, it's the logical thing to do. And while modern Icelandic lacks pitch accent, there is actually a paper that suggests that Icelandic had something similar to Norwegian up until the 1600s. So I think most of this is simply due to English speakers who study Old Norse and they're unfamiliar with modern Scandinavian languages. But coming from a Scandinavian perspective, as a native Scandinavian speaker, pronouncing Old Norse without pitch accent, knowing the historical development of the language, doesn't make sense. In general, I prefer to use Old Swedish, because Old Swedish is much more representative of the common ancestor to Swedish and Danish, and to some extent Eastern Norwegian, than Old Icelandic is. And the terminology for the development of medieval Scandinavia is very confusing and overlapping. Every country in Scandinavia has its own terms and words for everything. I can show a picture from Johan Schalin in one of my Swedish videos, where he showed a confusing timeline for the development of Scandinavian, which is different, even if the language itself isn't really that different, but it's terms and words like fornnordiska, rundsvenska, Old Norse, Old Icelandic, Old Dansk, Gammeldansk, like there's so many different overlapping terms. So I find it kind of difficult to use a good word to describe the medieval Scandinavian language. Sometimes I would even say Old Scandinavian. Some have suggested a comparison video between Germanic and other branches like Baltic and Celtic in the Indo-European language tree. The thing is that it's an interesting subject, but I only know Germanic languages. I only speak Germanic languages. I only studied Germanic languages. I don't know anything about Latin or Irish or Lithuanian. I have to bring in an expert in the historical development of those branches and languages to make a proper video. I can't just look up declensions myself and make assumptions. It's I would need to bring in an expert in Latin or Celtic or Baltic to make a proper assessment, in my opinion. Gothic has been suggested. Personally, I would say there is already a lot of good material available on Gothic online, and I'm not sure that I can actually contribute with that much. And whether Gothic is closer to Old Norse or older West Germanic languages, I think it's a very complex subject. I think somebody has asked me about Old Gutnish. I will maybe make a video about Old Gutnish, but Old Gutnish really isn't that substantially different from other Norse dialects. Speaking of upcoming videos, I am currently working on a video on early modern Swedish. It's aimed towards Swedish speakers because it's kind of difficult to make a video about early modern Swedish unless you already speak Swedish. So I'm actually making a lot of videos only in Swedish because I feel like there's already material available. For example, I don't make declension videos or grammar videos in English because I might as well link Jackson Crawford's videos or something because he's dealing with the same subject. So I don't really see the point of doing my own videos. I think those are the main questions I've been getting. I have ordered a book on early Proto-Germanic by Wolfram Euler. I will maybe make more videos about early Proto-Germanic, but I think that it's kind of stale. I don't know exactly how much more I would be able to do. But if you have some suggestions for future videos, you can leave some comments and motivations to why I should make those videos.